I remember telling Dan's mom when she was losing faith, I'd be like, Kathy, this is me at like 13 or whatever. And I would talk to his mom, be like, it's all good. Trust me. Like, believe me.
Well, nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for doing this. My name's Adam, and this is a podcast about you all and your journey in music. And we'll talk about the new song you just released. I love the acoustic version, which is incredible.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I always just start off born and raised, and I kind of want to hear like the beginning origin story of the band, and then we'll get into the new stuff too.
Sure. Yeah. So we've been a band. The three of us have been a band together since we were 15, but Dan and Will go back even longer. They've been a band together since they were like 9 years old. I think
wow.
I think Will even told Dan to pick up the guitar. I think that's why Dan did get started.
Yeah, I met Dan in 3rd grade. He moved to our town from Vermont. And he was just, he was just a little boy in a little polo shirt. And somehow, I wonder how we became friends before that. But I remember once we were friends, it was like, oh, like you had an acoustic guitar in your house that you've like touched before. But I was like, you should get an electric guitar.
The heirloom acoustic.
Start a damn band.
Yeah.
I was so desperate for people to play with because I started playing so young and like no one picked any instruments up, or just like it was too boring for me to jam with them because they just couldn't keep up, kind of thing.
Sure.
So me and Dan bought a little starter pack, and then we just went to this camp. Yeah.
Did you all grow up in the same area then? Like Chrissy, were you all were?
Will were like 5 minutes from each other, not even. Like we could like walk to each other's houses.
A mile and a half down the road.
Yeah, and then Chrissy lived like an hour away.
Okay.
A little more, like an hour and a half. I grew up in New Jersey. They grew up in New York, but like I grew up like very, very North Jersey, so it was like kind of on the border. So I wasn't too far, but yeah. So when I was 15, we had like a mutual friend. I was like really, really lightly in music at that point. Like I had just barely begun making friends and like that were in bands and things. And one of those friends mentioned, I guess, me to Dan and Will and vice versa, because they were looking for a singer and I had never been in a band. And yeah, I have such a vivid memory of going into my parents' bedroom. My mom was like reading in bed and being like, hey, so I met these guys on MySpace. They're so cool. They have their own MySpace page and their own songs. So at the time they had already gone through like 3 bands at that point. And like you guys had like songs though. And I thought having recorded songs, like they had recorded their own songs. I was like, that is the pinnacle of cool at that point, because I had not done that at all. And I was like, hey, yeah, they live. So I met these guys on the internet. They live an hour and a half away from us. Will you drive me to go hang out with them? And my mom was like, are you high?
Right.
But it ended up working out. Like, I think like Dan's mom and my mom chatted, and Dan's mom drove the guys down to my house first, and like so our moms could meet, and we played like Taylor Swift songs in my basement on an acoustic guitar and vibed and yeah. And then like somehow I grew up with like not like crazy strict parents, but like pretty strict parents, like pretty traditional. Somehow they let me like go stay at Dan's house in his guest room so we could all jam out over the weekend and like, a couple weeks later. So I don't know. It was like, I always think it must have been like genuinely fate, because it was so out of character for my parents to say yes to it, that I just feel like the universe must have been pushing on them to say yes.
Wow. Or Dan's mom was really sweet to your mom or something.
Yeah. Oh,
she felt safe with her and that family.
Well, that was the thing too, is like, I think we all come from like our families are all really loving. Like our parents are all really supportive of like music, and they've all just always kind of had our backs. So I think I think the mom squad all had like their hands in and we're like, yeah, we're going to make our kids rock stars,
That's amazing. Do you come from a musical household, Chrissy?
No, not at all. I mean, like maybe some distant family, like we had some like people that like to sing, but no one in like my family or immediate family did anything with music.
You were just interested in it, and
I mean, my parents my mom loves music. Like she's like loves consuming it, but no one played or wrote or sang or anything.
Okay. Wow. And Will, it sounds like you started playing really early on.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was guitar or drums actually. It was kind of, 'cause I did have a guitar when I was really little, but probably around like 3 or 4, I was just hitting shit. Because I grew up around music was always in my house. My dad's musical, my mom's brothers are all musical. My brother was in a band, so there was always like a drum set in our basement, and I would like sneak down when I was little and fuck around on the drums.
Yeah. Wow. And then so you kind of got, it sounds like, Dan, then you got involved in music because of Will kind of was like, hey, you have a guitar, let's learn how to play it.
Yeah, no, I think is my hockey teammate, it showed me like Green Day, and then he actually knew how to play music. So it's just like a nice merging of me wanting to play music and then having a friend who is really good at music, and then we just made it happen.
I remember giving you mixtapes.
Yeah.
I would give him burnt CDs of like all like the cool bands.
What were some of the bands? I mean, what Green Day album? Like what?
Oh, it's American Idiot.
Okay.
I mean, like that's my age range. Yeah. But yeah, to learn all the scene stuff.
I was showing you the real obscure stuff. I mean, we were in like 3rd or 4th grade, and I was getting all of my music from like my older siblings that are like 10 years older than me. So I was listening to like Saves the Day and like Taking Back Sunday and like Say Anything.
Oh,
and, like,
sure. That's like I must be at least 10 years older than you guys then. That's funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was great. Like it wasn't in the realm of possibility for any kid my age, at least in my vicinity, to have any idea what it was, unless I was like force feeding it to them.
That's so funny. That's rad though. At least you
Luckily,
got
you loved it. And
you got the homework on those cool earlier emo bands.
I had someone do something similar to me. When I was 14, because I didn't know anything either. And I was a theater kid. And I remember this one kid, he was a senior and I was a freshman, and like we were in the same friend group. Not like that though. It wasn't like that kind of senior freshman story, like just friends, just friends. But he was like, I actually think the band that I hadn't heard of was like All Time Low. I think he was like a huge All Time Low fan, and he was really offended that I had never heard of them. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know. And he's like, and then he started listing out all these other bands too. I can't remember what they were. And I was like, I don't know. I've never listened to a single one of them. I listened to like classic rock at the time because of my parents. And he literally made me a handwritten list of like 50 scene bands, pop punk scene bands, and 50 like heavy bands, and was like, you need to consume all of this. And I remember downloading like every single band's like discography on like Frostfire. Like I didn't even use LimeWire. It was really weird. And just being like, okay, I gotta learn all this. I don't know why I felt like I had to learn it all, but I was like, I felt so shamed that I like didn't do it. So yeah.
Well, yeah, then you got a little music education from this person.
But I feel like I learned most of like all the bands that like we emulate and have toured with and things like that. I've learned from like the guys.
So prior to meeting them, you hadn't been in a band or anything. This was your first venture.
No, I picked up guitar at 9 poorly. And I also started just like messing around in like GarageBand and then Pro Tools like a couple years later and trying to write my own songs. But like, yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it. It was just me, myself, and I. So I was in kind of my Taylor Swift era.
I love Taylor Swift still.
I love Taylor Swift too.
I'm
I mean,
going to
like
see her
I
in
was
Nashville.
in like,
I'm so excited.
I was like OG, like my like writing like every song was like 4 chords, and it was beautiful, you know, like and it was great and it was perfect and I loved it. So that was the era that I was in. But yeah. And
so
I met Dan and Will.
Yeah, so you had a mutual friend that kind of connected the two of you. I mean, that's quite the distance. I mean, an hour and a half.
They were from Baltimore, so they weren't even.
They're from Maryland.
Yeah, they weren't even like they weren't in between or anything.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Yeah, music is very global, you know.
Yeah. Was this all just based of like online, or did you know this person?
No,
we actually both know him.
We had met our friend at like when we were playing with our old local band when we were kids, and his band happened to be playing some festival in our hometown, and I think we talked over Hairspray at the time. I think that's how we met.
And I met him through like a weirdly long chain of mutual friends. Like my mom, one of her best friends from when she was 6 years old, had a son who is in a band. And they were like family friends. So I went to his shows and I was like, this is so cool. He's in a band. This is what I want to do. He's a few years older than me. Became, closer. He was like a cousin to me. And then one of his band members I became friends with him, and then he was in another band that was an all-male Lady Gaga rock cover band. And then I loved them, and I went to a bunch of their shows, and that was my friend. And then I made friends with the other guitarist in that band, and that guitarist was the one that connected us. So it was like a long, weird string of like mutual, like met a person through a person through a person through a person that ultimately led to Dan and Will.
And then we went to your Sweet 16 and all together because Rad Bromance was performing, and we were
I asked the all-male Lady Gaga cover band called Rad Bromance. I asked them to play on my Sweet 16. So
that's amazing.
It was no one got it except for like me and the guys. I was stoked, and then like all of my like friends with quotes, because they were kind of like the people I associated with high school, but we didn't have anything in common. For the most part, they were all so confused. They were like, I don't get what's going on here. And I was like, that's okay, don't worry about it.
The Sweet 16 theme song, the MTV one, is so good.
Oh yeah, the show, My Super Sweet 16. So you guys, Will, you and Dan had a band, and did you had like you were playing shows and everything else, and what you needed a singer? Like how did
like so we started a band with like our other like 2 or 3 other friends of ours, like our best friends at the time. And just, you know, everyone's kind of always afraid to like take that initiative or like, you know, step up and like try to be like a singer. And so we were like writing all these songs. We had like a catalog of shit we we're always writing and practicing, but never like a legit front person. You know what I mean? Like it just never clicked. That's what was always holding us back. Like, you know, there was a period of time where we had a singer that was like 10 years older than us, other just close friends that never sang before that were like, hey, give it a try, kind of a thing. So we just always struggled with that. It was really frustrating. And then we met Chrissy. It's like, oh, okay, there we go. Yeah.
But being like 15 years old, were you to play shows and stuff, like you would where were the shows mostly at? New York? Like Chrissy would have to go all the way.
The Chance Complex.
We're playing dirty clubs.
Yeah. Platinum Lounge.
Played New York. We played Mexicali.
Was in New Jersey. Yeah.
Mexicali, yeah. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
And I mean, off that first EP, you guys had traction like right away, right?
Yeah, our first
we were pretty lucky.
Ever were with Alex Goot, and then when that EP came out, we did our first tour, the Sink or Swim tour.
Yeah.
Whoa.
We had been doing, because we couldn't tour because we were so young, we had been releasing, like we had been doing stuff on YouTube, like playing covers of like other songs and things like that. So we had actually gotten a fan base already before we could even tour, which is really lucky and great, because then when we did tour, like there were small shows, but some people showed up as opposed to no people.
Right. Yeah. To build that fan base online, it must have been strange to see, you know, you see numbers on the internet, and then to actually go to these towns that these people are listening from, and then they're there.
Yeah.
That's like a whole different thing.
Yeah. It was wild. And then it was even more wild when we went overseas for the first time. And like we were co-headlining our first shows in Asia ever. And like people were there. And it was the first time I'd ever even been to Asia. And I was just like, holy moly, how did you guys get here?
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds like this is like your guys' dream going, I mean, to be in high school and wanting to tour and do all these things, like this was what you were set out to do. It sounds like was there like a backup plan at all?
No,
not really.
I mean, that's amazing.
We're all plan A.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what you have to do. I mean, to have people together. I mean, it's hard to get a band together that will stay together. And then not only that, everyone kind of in the same mindset of wanting to tour and make this work, especially that young of an age.
Yeah, I think, you know, we made some hard decisions really early on. We had started as a 5-piece and went down to 3, even though the other 2 members were like, before we did our first EP, even though the other 2 members were our friends, we just kind of recognized from really early on that there was just this mental connection between the 3 of us, where we were all kind of, our eyes were set on the same goal. And I think having that kind of alignment is really rare. And it's also really powerful when you have it, because it's something that you kind of can't teach or learn. It's there or it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getting people together that, you know, gel and write well together. And then not only that, are willing to put the work in and on a tour and really try to set it up to succeed is very rare.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough industry. I mean, especially when you're starting out. It's not glamorous at all. It's not comfortable in any way. It's a pretty brutal industry. And so I think it breaks a lot of people. So it takes a lot of understanding of that and a lot of mental fortitude, I think, to just keep going through it.
Yeah, 100%. So you guys had put out 2 EPs before. I know you're independent again, which is amazing, but you got, obviously you were on Fueled by Ramen for a while, and to get that, to have 2 EPs out independently and have this fan base, I mean, that's huge in a sense that when they come to you, was that a big moment to get signed to a label?
It was really cool because they were coming to our show, like they were seeking us out. We weren't sending them stuff
press kits
first.
And stuff.
Yeah, so that was cool because it was like, okay, like we've done something that turned heads. We sold out like our first New York show, I think, and that was kind of what a bunch of labels had come out to that show because they were like, I guess it's on their radar, like who's this unsold band or unsigned band that's selling out, this venue. And it was like the smallest venue in New York, but it's still like, it's worth noting, I guess, that something might be stirring. So yeah, it felt good to just, it felt validating, at least. Like we were 18, I think, and it was just very validating to be like, oh, like, people are paying attention and they're noticing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been big. Just your parents getting, driving you an hour and a half each way, and then finally it's like, look, this is working. Like, not only are the EPs doing well and we're touring and we sold out New York, and now a record label is interested. I could imagine that being very validating. It
was definitely important for my family to kind of prove to them that there is something tangible here, because my family were really, really strong proponents of like, go to school, finish your degree, and then do what you want. And I was kind of like, I know why you think that. Like, my dad was the first in his family to go to school, so for him it's like, and he saw the opportunities that it unlocked for him. But for me, I was like, hey, I have this thing that's in front of me right now. It's not something I can come back to, when the timing is happening right now.
Did Will or you or Dan have that same conversation with your family? Was it like, I want you guys to go to college, or was that a thing or no?
I mean, for me, definitely. Like I went to the orientation and everything, and then took a few years off and then started like online classes slowly. But I mean, like Chrissy said, like when it's happening, you just have to do it, because you don't know if it'll be there in a few years.
Yeah, is it going to be there again in 4 years or whatever?
Yeah.
What about you, Will? Were you in the same situation?
Luckily my brother kind of paved the way for me. Like I said, he was always in music.
Yeah.
So and I picked it up at a really early age, and my parents were super supportive because like music, it's like deep in our blood on both sides. So
yeah,
really awesome and super supportive, always, making sure I had what I needed, like no matter what, and stuff like that. So yeah, luckily my brother kind of made all the mistakes first, and then
they're like, okay, yeah, we got another one in music.
No, paved the way for me. But
oh, that's awesome.
That's Dan and I are both older sibling, the oldest of our families, and it's so much harder. You gotta set all the groundwork. I look at my brother's 7 years younger than me, and he's in college, like he's not doing like an untraditional route right now, but like even just with the little things, it's so much easier for him. Like the things that I would have gotten like locked down, put in jail for, they're like, yeah, with him. And
no
I'm
big
like,
deal.
This is bullshit. Like, I was like, and especially being the, like, the little girl versus like, now he's like, well, now he's like kind of a man, but I always think of him like he's so little, but he's actually much taller than me now. But yeah, and I'm like, I just see it all the time, and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like this is, I deserve something in return for all of the hard work I did paving the way for you.
Yeah, for you to not get as much in trouble for doing the same exact thing.
Oh, it was so frustrating.
That's funny. Well, like you said, you invalidated by signing the deal with Fueled by Ramen. What would you guys think, or maybe you have different answers to the question, like what was kind of after that moment, like what would you say was like kind of the next big milestone for the band?
Probably just
putting out the albums, or
I mean, probably just the touring we were about to do.
I'd say just like selling out shows left and right. We were like, pew, pew, pew,
that was the big thing. I remember just always like the two things I wanted. That I was so confident. I mean, I remember telling Dan's mom when she was losing faith, I'd be like, Kathy, this is me at like 13 or whatever, and I would talk to his mom, be like, it's all good, trust me, like believe me. I mean, I literally, when you write those letters to yourself, like whatever freshman year, and you get it on your graduation day. I totally forgot about that. And we had our this big Asia tour, like our first tour really after that Infinity EP. And it was like a couple days after our graduation. We were leaving. Like we were maybe going to miss our graduation, me and Dan.
Oh, wow.
And I remember getting that letter that morning, and it said, it just had two things. I didn't even write myself a letter. It had two check boxes, and one said, sign a major record deal and tour professionally. And we just signed the record deal. And we were about to go to Southeast Asia. And I forgot I even wrote myself that letter. So that was pretty crazy.
That's
so sweet.
It's like, what are you supposed to write down, like what you want, or like a vision? It was almost like
a whole thing, like where you see yourself and what you're doing. And I just made like two check boxes. And I remember like tweeting it. This is like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, you're like, nailed it. Did both of them.
Yeah.
That's so cute. I don't remember what was in mine. I went to a Catholic high school though, so I remember we had to like, oh no, we didn't even do that. We had our family write us letters. And in your senior year, in your senior year, you go to like a nunnery. Like I don't know what they call it. What do they call it where nuns go? Like not
monastery.
I think that's the priest one, but it's like the nun specific version of that. But we had to go there, and we had to like stay overnight for like 2 nights, and it was honestly terrifying and a really weird, creepy experience.
Sounds like it.
And then they gave us like,
I know, they've got a little
there. Yeah, you know how. So I remember finding like we were all in like we had our own bedroom, but it was pretty much a jail cell, and with a big cross looking at you, and like nothing but a bed and a cross and a sink, and it was, but not a toilet. And I found a book in the nightstand that said Tales from the Executioner, and I was like, this can't be what I think it is. Open it up. Really vile shit in it, and I was like, okay. And then but anyway, so the second night, you go into the church at night with only candles lit, don't know why, really was ready to be sacrificed, and you read letters that your family wrote you about like how proud they are and like of you, and you're like supposed to cry and stuff, and I was too busy like waiting for like the murderer to come in. So I didn't have the same experience, but I like Will's better. I
decided that where the nuns go is just, it's the coven. They're coven because they're a bunch of witches.
Yeah, it might be. Honestly,
yeah, it's interesting. Were they like trying to convert you all to be like, here's a possibility for you. You could be a nun.
I have no idea, but I've never been more dissuaded from something before. It was the most terrifying setting ever. I was like, this looks like something out of like American Horror Story.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. Well, you guys recently announced that you're back to being independent, and you've done you have a big tour obviously coming up, and then you released a new song as well. Was it like, what was it like kind of being able to do this again, independently or on your own?
I mean, it didn't really feel like anything changed from
really?
From Fever. I mean, at the end of the label stuff, yeah. I mean, from Fever on, like, yeah, it's
okay.
We just got a lot more freedom and just kind of like time to really just figure out what we're doing here, and how we're moving forward, and how to do it better and more successfully than the last time. We built like a whole new team, just kind of like handpicked, took our time. That's already proving to be like really valuable, and it's helping us do exactly what we want, and stress a little bit less, and all that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And especially, I mean, you guys have a fan base and you're doing these big things, and to be able to kind of, I mean, I would imagine like just being able to release music when you want to, or doing what you want to, kind of having that freedom would be a bit different.
Oh yeah. We have a song coming out in the next couple weeks or something, and we turned in the master like a week ago and we're like, we're ready, like, let's do it. Whereas like the label, it's like, it's got to be like 8 years before the song's going to be released. And it's like, and I get it, like they just have their processes and it's a big company. If they don't have that, they can't run effectively. But first, it doesn't work for everyone. And for us, it was kind of like stifled our creativity and our ability. We like being able to pivot and do things like as they feel right. So yeah, it just feels a little bit more natural for us to do it this way.
So with like Blindfold is the new one. Was that song written within that same time period? Like tell me about that song and just kind of what it was about and putting that together versus, and what you have coming up as well.
Yeah, that song was interesting because actually the music and the top line came together separately. I had done a writing session where the top line came out over a very, very different kind of sound. So it was very like poppy and light and not really fitting against the current. And then Will had been working on an instrumental track, and I think Dan came in and was like, hey, like I think the blindfolded vocals would fit over this, and they kind of tried it out and it worked, and like that's kind of how we ended up where it is. And obviously re-recorded it and everything, but like that's kind of where the direction came from. And then conceptually it's really just about, which I think is something that everyone kind of experiences in their 20s especially, is about when being disillusioned by the thing you always wanted turning out to be totally different once you had it. So kind of playing with the idea of nightmares and daydreams. It's like the thing you used to daydream about, now that you have it, it's actually a total nightmare. And I think we all kind of experience that at all points in our life, but I think your 20s is such a potent theme, where it's whether it's people, your job, like what you thought your life was going to be out of college, when you like start really becoming an adult, the real world, your relationships, all these kind of things, you can kind of realize that all the things that I wanted so badly, when I got them, they were nothing like I thought they would be. And maybe I actually wish I had never gotten them.
No, totally. I remember having that with job situations. It's like, okay, if I get this job, my life's going to be awesome. And then you're like, this sucks after like 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow. So you talked about having another new song. Is there more music? Are you guys like writing all the time, or like how do you navigate that?
Not all the time, but
okay. Well, you're touring a lot too, right?
Yeah, we do have
we start a lot of ideas, so we're in the process of like finishing them right now. So the song that's coming out in like 10 days or less or something, we just wrapped up and we're moving on to the next one. But the process has been started for most of these songs that we're trying to get to the finish line.
That's awesome. But being able to, like you said earlier, just being able to record it and then turn the master in and be like, okay, we're going to put it out now. Is that going to be like the formula, or you want to put together like another EP or album, or you don't really know yet?
I think we might go song by song. I don't know, it just feels really good because we can get hung up on like the little things. So I could see this process being really effective for us. Like if we weren't about to leave for a tour, I would already be jumped into the next song. And I feel like it's really good for us. It's just we have one in the bank. Yeah. We loved it. When we finished it, forget about it and move on to the next one and repeat the process as opposed to before when it's like, you just write 30 songs that are in a demo form and you're like, I don't know, like
like pick through them and like, okay, we want these 15 or 10 or whatever.
Also just like the grueling songwriting process when you're on a label is like they usually just put you in like in session after session after session after session every single day, and it's like sometimes you just wake up and the well's dry that day, like you got nothing, but like your A&R got you in this session and you're representing them, and so you kind of feel pressured to be like, all right, I have to write a banger track today, and I think sometimes like that pressure to make something come out of the day makes you make decisions you wouldn't normally make, which sounds like it can be a good thing, but I think it also can make you really stray from like the music that you want to make and is authentic. We have so many songs that are just shelved and just sitting in drop boxes that are good songs. They're just not against the current songs. And like, you could tell within the first hour of the day, like this is not an against the current track, but like, we just kind of have to sit there and sit the whole thing out. And then 12 hours later, you kind of have this finished song that's just going to go sit on a shelf.
Interesting. Yeah. Cause you can kind of feel early on, like this isn't going to ever be released,
Yeah.
but we got to kind of fulfill our end of the deal here.
I think that's also part of growing up too, though, is at the time when you're in those sessions, you're kind of like, you feel like the smallest fish in the very, very big pond. So you're not going to be the one that speaks up. But like now I think if I were in that position, if we're 2 hours in and like it's either not working or like, you know, we're not getting somewhere, we're not feeling it, or the song's not the right vibe. Like now I feel good saying like, this just isn't the right fit. Like, let's not waste everyone's time today and everyone's mental, because it takes a lot to write a song. It's not like, obviously it's a great place to be. Like, I would never say like, you know, hey, writing songs is the hardest job in the world. It's not. We're really lucky that we get to do that as part of our job. It just can be mentally taxing. So if you're making people sit in a room for 10 hours, like I think I'd rather be like, hey, let's all just go do something else today. Like, let's go work on another thing in the project, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of drain everyone's mental sitting there and just beating our heads into the wall and being like, we need to make this work today. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Like
just not how
force it.
creativity works.
Yeah. 100%. Are you guys, well, real quick, Chrissy, I want to comment just on the fact that you have the song Phoenix, you have it with Kaylin Russo, and
Yeah.
her dad is a really good friend of mine. Like,
Oh,
and I
no
grew up with her.
way.
Yeah. Her Uncle Johnny Grill. And yeah, we
That's
grew up and
awesome.
went to the same high school together. And Scott, her dad, wrote the intro theme song for this podcast.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's so cool.
And I saw that you did that one song with her. So I was like, oh,
Yeah,
no way.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so wild.
That was awesome. Yeah. That's actually, I think, the only time I've ever done a track with like a featured, like not feature, I guess it was like a co-track, but it's the only time I've ever sang with another female artist, which was awesome. So
That's
what I'm
cool.
trying
Yeah.
to get at.
Yeah. She's got a great voice, and her new album's
Yeah.
out too, which is cool. But yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that. I was like, no way. She's working with Caitlin. It's so funny.
It was really fun working together because we are very different artists, but have a lot of similarities at the same time. So
Mhm.
I felt like it was such a fun vibe because there were so many things about like her artist career that I love. And I'm like, in another life, I would have like wanted to have that kind of identity. And I think so. It was just so fun to like work together and kind of like I don't know. I like stepped out of like who I am as an artist and kind of into this like new version for a minute where it was like just the two of us. And I was like, this is really cool. It's like one of the only times I've also done something without the guys, which is also really weird too. I get like a lot of anxiety whenever I do things without them. I feel like very like, feel like I'm like floating through space.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's just the fact that I saw your name on there. I was like, whoa, that's so wild. Like, I couldn't believe that connection. But I appreciate you all doing this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
You have a big tour. Like, are you playing any cities you haven't played before? Any you're really excited about?
We're playing a couple cities we haven't played before in Latin America. I think we're doing
wow.
Brazil for the first time, Peru, and I'm missing one. Oh no, the others we've been to. Those are the two new ones.
Yeah, those
and then some shows.
Australia.
Yeah, Australia cities we haven't done, and I think we've been everywhere else.
Hawaii. We haven't
Hawaii, yeah.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Play a Hawaii date.
Yeah.
Well,
Selfishly, we're all so excited for that show. We might not show up to the show. We might just stay on the beach all day, you know?
I was gonna say, do you have like a buffer time of some days that you could hang out there a little bit before and after?
I think we got one coming in from South America.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you all, taking your time and hanging out with me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I have one more question. I want to see if I can get an answer from you all individually. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Who wants to go first? Dan, it's you.
Yeah, they always ask. They always.
I know, because you always piggyback on our answer, so you got to go first.
Guess just I don't even know. I don't even know how I do it now. To be honest. But I mean,
well, so gotta know that no one knows what they're doing.
Yes, you just gotta keep playing. I mean, like those days we spent practicing over and over again for there never to even be a show. Like we were just practicing to practice. I think that's what lets us do what we can do now.
I think what Dan's trying to say is do it because you love it.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's trying to say.
I
love
love that. That's
And then
good.
and
Aw.
then I'm gonna say just trust your gut. Trust your gut. I mean, don't like, you got to listen to people and take people's advice, but trust your gut at the end of the day. Because that's definitely something that I lost for years in this process. So I can say from experience, trust that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. What about you,
Oh
Chrissy?
shit. Guys, those are good ones. Trying to come up with something new. I don't know how to say this, but like, I guess just don't be afraid to think outside the box. When we were coming up, we were doing covers on YouTube, and we got a lot of shit from other bands that, quote unquote, real bands as they considered themselves, and that we were a YouTube band or a digital band or an internet band, and like they totally discredited us. And I was like, we're playing the same rooms you are, we're selling the same tickets you are, we are streaming the same, if not better than you are. So don't be afraid. Whatever's new, don't shit on it. Don't be jaded. Don't be like, hey, I hate these TikTok kids, making songs on the internet. It's like technology in the world and everything is going to keep evolving. Don't be afraid to try something new. You don't have to follow, a formula that's archaic and outdated just because you think it'll get you credibility. At the end of the day, if you love what you're doing and you want to get your art out there to the world, there's way more than one way to do it.